So we're going to go ahead and adjourn to open session. No actions were taken in closed session. And we're going to adjourn at 6:08. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved. Second.
Attendance, roll call, President Eldershun here, Clerk Reed.
Here.
Trustee Lopez is absent tonight. Trustee Maxfield is absent. Trustee Galindo.
Here.
And Student Representative Casares. She's on that side tonight. Perfect. Can I get everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes on the agenda?
No, they're not.
Okay. So no changes, I'm looking for a motion to go ahead and approve and adopt the agenda.
So,
Okay.
I'll second.
Perfect. Mark moved, Matt second. All in favor? Two absent. Great. Our district mission statement: we are a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where a rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. 4.1, our recognitions. The Board of Education recognizes students, employees, or members of the community who have received recognition for academic or athletic achievement or who have made significant contributions of any kind to our district. So tonight we are recognizing, I think Raul is going to take charge of this, yeah? Mr. Jesus Rojas Mendoza.
He promised me that he was going to be here at 6. Where is that? I just want to say that being recognized for the Northern California chapter of the National Football Foundation and College Hall of Fame is a very special recognition. Letters of recommendations are done, and personal essays written, grades are turned in, and community service hours as well are among the requirements for this recognition. It gives me great pleasure to acknowledge Jesus Rojas Mendoza as the recipient of this year's award. He is one of 2 athletes selected from Napa County and one of 24 athletes in all of Northern California. Jesus will be recognized on March 13th at the 60th Annual Awards Dinner in Burlingame. So what makes Jesus an excellent recipient of this award? Of course, we look at his athletic abilities, 3-season athlete since junior high. That means he also competed in the National Cross Country Championship Finals in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 2015. And he has played varsity level soccer, football, basketball, has done cross country, track and field, and I probably missed the sport there as well, but he's a tremendous athlete. On top of all this, he has been a scholar athlete with a GPA of 3.43, and last semester he had a 4.0. So what makes Jesus even more special is his compassion. His football coach, Jim Klaczak, describes him as a young man with an old soul that leads by example on and off the fields and courts. Mr. Heights, his cross-country coach and PE teacher, states that Jesus' level of dedication and commitment are exemplary and that he is an ambassador for our school and our community in service and mentoring. And I consider myself proud to be his principal, and we just wanted to congratulate Jesus Rojas Mendoza for this award. Thank you.
If I may add, that was the Junior Olympics. It was a national, he came in 74th in the nation. The training, he wasn't ready for the elevation. And I've coached him 4 years in football. And he will do whatever you ask him to do. He might not be happy about it, but he does not complain. He's very emotional. I am humbled to have coached him, and just his drive is just something special. He is one of them special athletes.
pops in, we might just stop everything and do that again. So 5.1, public business from the floor for non-agenda items. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item regarding board business that's not on the agenda. Without taking action or entering into a dialogue with the public, board members may briefly respond to statements made or ask clarifying questions about topics posed by the public. Your matter may be referred to administration, and individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Did we have anybody? Anybody? Excellent. Why don't you stand up at the podium, give us your name, where you live in Calistoga.
My name is Sarah Pusey, and I want to pay everyone a compliment, actually. I had the opportunity to appear on the elementary school campus just as the school was being let out. And I've been on quite a few school campuses. I have never had so much eye contact and big smiles from kids from this size to this. It was a lovely experience.
That's good. Well, thank you for that. Okay, moving forward. Tonight, 6.1 is public hearing. So the protocol of a public hearing is as an elected governing body of California Joint Unified School District, Calistoga Joint Unified School District, the Board of Trustees conducts public hearings for the purpose of maintaining open communication with parents, students, and residents of the Calistoga Community and School District. Through the public hearing process, trustees seek ideas, viewpoints regarding the efficiency and quality of district-sponsored programs or any other area of the operation of the district and its schools. The trustees believe that open communication is a key element in the ongoing process of district, school, and program improvement. So, that's you. Okay. Oh, so I'm going to open, sorry. Opening the public hearing at 6:16. And we'll go to Maureen for some information.
Okay, this is our annual developer fee report. I provided the board with 2 reports tonight. One is the annual report, and then I've also included a 5-year report. The 5-year report has to be done every 5 years, but you'll probably see this every year along with the annual report, just so we never have to worry about what 5 years we're reporting. In the first one, the first annual report, that is just a report that shows our income and our expenditures for the year. And then we have to meet 8 different criteria within the report, and those criteria are listed as criteria A through H in the document. And so those criteria have all been responded to with our public reports. I'm not going to go through each one individually because we'll be here for quite a while, but hopefully you've read through them. And it's just pretty much saying that we're adhering to Government Code 66001 and we're doing the things we need to do in order to collect those developer fees as a district. Just to go over a couple of points, we collected over $110,000 in developer fees. That was up a little bit from the previous year. We earned about $6,600 on income in those fees. And then we did get a little bit of money back from our bond issuance that we did in 2017 of about $14,000. We spend the majority of what we collect on a year-to-year basis to pay for our final COPS loan that we have, a certificate of participation, and that's about $75,000 with interest on a yearly basis, and we'll be finished paying with that in 2023. The ending cash balance at the end of 2018-19 was about a little over $335,000, and that's with all of those expenditures and that income included. On the 5-year report, what we're reporting is, in the last 5 years, from 14-15 all the way through 18-19, have we spent the money that we earned in 14-15? Part of Government Code Section 66001 says that if we don't spend what we earned in 14-15 by the end of 18-19, then we need to send that money back to developers. We want to make sure we spend those funds. And so that 5-year report does show that what we collected in 14-15 we have spent over the last 5 years. So we do meet that criteria. And then there are 4 other criteria that we have to meet in the 5-year development reports, and those have been addressed in items, I think it's A through D. And again, we have met all of these findings. We have explained what we're spending the money on, what we plan to spend the money on. Are we doing what we need to do with what we're getting in fees, meaning that we're supposed to be using it for expansion or redevelopment of our existing facilities? And we are doing all of those things. So again, we've met all that criteria. We don't have to pay any money back because we've spent all of those funds, and that's pretty much our 5-year report. Any questions from the board?
Perfect. So comments from the public about developer fees? No? Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and close that at 6:19 and move on to 7.1. So 7.1 is the Community Leaders Coalition. Dorothy Stengel and Elba Gonzalez Maris, representatives from the Community Health Initiative, are going to present to the board on potential changes to the public policy rule and what it might mean for our school district.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Dorothy Stengel and I'm the director of the Community Leaders Coalition. Elba Gonzalez Maris wasn't able to join us tonight. She got called into something else. But I'd like to thank you for having me tonight and giving me the opportunity to present. And I'd also like to acknowledge the school district for really taking the leadership and making sure that your schools are a safe haven for immigrant families. So today's presentation, I'm really here to talk about the public charge rule and the chilling effect that policies such as this are having on the health and well-being of immigrant families in Calistoga. Learn a little bit more about the impacts on the school district, and to talk somewhat about recommendations on how better to mitigate some of these policy implications that we don't necessarily have control over at the local level. So the Community Leaders Coalition was formed in 2016, really in a response to a changing policy environment and wanting to better have a desire to better advocate locally in our county. So we mobilize community leaders to collectively advocate for the needs of vulnerable populations throughout the county. We have about 30 nonprofits, faith-based leaders, local government leaders, and community members that are part of the CLC. Some you might recognize: Up Valley Family Centers, Indira is part of the CLC. Others include the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, IIBA, that works with a lot of families in Calistoga, Girls on the Run. So that's just to give you an idea of kind of who we are. The Community Leaders Coalition does a range of work. Right now we're doing a lot around voting and voter turnout related to the Voters' Choice Act, and also leading some of the work around the 2020 census, which I'm sure you're going to hear tons about in the next couple of months. But today I'm really here to talk to you about one of our primary focuses, and that is advocating with and for immigrant families. So we have a Protect Immigrant Families subcommittee that really stays on the forefront of policy decisions that affect our families. And one thing we've been really doing over the last year is trying to oppose and mitigate public charge. And I'll share with you a little bit about what that is and what it looks like here in Calistoga. And this gets a little bit technical, so we're just going to try to keep it super simple. Public charge is essentially a test that is applied by immigration officials when someone is applying to become a legal permanent resident or obtain green card status. So for example, an undocumented individual waiting for their application to be processed. The test is designed to identify people who may likely depend on the government as their main source of support, so that they would essentially be a public charge. Factors when immigration officials are deciding this, it includes someone's age, health, financial status, education level, knowledge of English, and whether they've used public benefits. If the government determines that someone is likely to become a public charge, it can deny access to staying in the U.S. Legally or to become a lawful permanent resident. The new rule was published in August 2019 and really just changes the way that immigration officers think about how people are accessing benefits. You have a packet in front of you that has more detailed information and goes into the specifics about what does public charge affect or not affect. So I'll just kind of briefly go over it, but please do refer to that. So some of the programs it does affect is Medi-Cal for age over 21, CalFresh, food stamps, cash assistance, federal housing and Section 8 assistance. Programs not affected is Medi-Cal used by children under 21, services for pregnant women, emergency services, WIC, school lunch, breakfast programs, and emergency disaster relief. Last week, on January 27th, the Supreme Court lifted a nationwide injunction on the rule, basically saying that it is implementable. So the rule will go into effect on February 24th of 2020. It will only apply to applications postmarked on or after that date. Legal challenges do continue, but the rule will go into effect in just a couple of weeks. More than, public charge is really only a range of proposals that government agencies really across the board are implementing to make it harder for immigrants to legally enter or stay in the U.S. and ultimately become U.S. citizens. And they're really targeted primarily at low income or immigrants of color. Public charges happens to be one that's been very publicized. But really one of the most damaging effects of these proposals is the chilling effect, what we call the chilling effect that it's having on the immigrant community. And the chilling effect is really making people fearful to access benefits and services in support of their health and well-being. And that is if this affects them or not. If public charge affects them or not, the damage has really already been done and people are fearful about what this might mean for their families. So for example, a lot of the CLC members that I mentioned earlier, local social service organizations and health organizations have reported that families are not renewing for health insurance that they qualify for. And they're concerned about applying for programs that aren't even affected by the public charge rule. So over the holidays, holiday assistance programs, and then free or reduced lunch or food access programs. The proposed threats really have, we've really seen that this is real, that families are experiencing fear, and this is really why we're here today. So in Calistoga, what this looks like, this kind of got cut off, the slide got cut off, but we've looked at U.S. Census data, and essentially the chilling effect could affect 1 in 3 residents in Calistoga, so around 1,500, and then 1 in 2 students in the Calistoga Joint Unified School District could be chilled from participating in benefits that make their families healthier and stronger, and that they have the right to access. So next, I'm going to share some recommendations that for the school district that really have collectively come from the knowledge and experience of CLC members and agencies that have been working directly with immigrant families daily. Our intent really is to be a resource and to be a partner and hopefully provide information and resources that are useful to the school district. Despite what might be happening at the federal level in regard to immigration policy locally, we really need to come together to support the immigrant community and focus on local solutions. And we really do that through our CLC members that you know and trust. For example, Up Valley Family Centers is one. So the first recommendation is around messaging. We ask that the school district share vetted messaging and information about public charge and about the free and reputable resources that families can access and doing that really through your own information channels, website, newsletters, school bulletin board, and really provide families with specific information that free and reduced lunches does not affect immigration status. I think that's one that we really like to get across. Or another example might be to send a letter home to families knowing where they can access information and resources to support their family's health and well-being. In your packet, we provided a template in English. In Spanish, we have it, and we'll send that electronically. Another area is training. We recommend training school staff who are regularly interacting with families about public charge, but really also about the chilling effect that rules such as this are having. It would really focus on how better to support immigrant families in a way that fosters trust and understanding. And we know that staff have a lot of requirements and a lot of mandates, and so an example could be something short at a staff meeting. We've recently trained 150 trusted messengers countywide to help us do this. Quite a few staff from Mount Valley Family Centers were part of that. The next piece is really documenting what this looks like in the county. We're trying to paint a better picture of what are some of the local trends that we see in the health and well-being of immigrant families, and really to use that so that the Community Leaders Coalition and other organizations can better advocate for resources that we need to mitigate some of this. So an example might be really taking a close look at any drops in free or reduced lunch programs, and also any increases in housing challenged families or student homeless rates. And lastly, despite access to information, families still may choose to disenroll from benefits or not seek services, and that's really their choice for what they're comfortable with for their family. As I said, the chilling effect is real, and as a community, and that includes school districts, local government, nonprofits, the faith-based community, we really need to come together to support the health and well-being of our families, and the CLC is essentially doing this in a two-part process. One is that our trusted messengers are working through a human-centered design approach to really learn what families themselves see as alternatives and solutions. And then we would take that information to integrate it into the second part of the process is a local convening of local stakeholders to talk about what are alternatives and solutions. I mean, maybe it's additional food bank resources at the schools, maybe it's additional health fairs, just coming together to talk about what those realistic alternatives could be, using solutions that are coming from families. And the CLC will support and organize this convening, and the ask is really that the school district is present and at the table, and that we're planning that in spring of this year. So I'd like to thank you this evening. Your willingness to allow us to present, I think, already shows the positive things that can come out of a very difficult and complex situation and policy environment. And I think, together we can really come up with local solutions that support our immigrant families. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for educating us on that.
Dorothy, I want to thank you for the templates and the letters. We're going to send them out later this week.
Great.
And we are working with the families that are on this already.
Great. I'm so happy to hear that. And we'll continue to share resources as they become available to us. So, thank you.
Okay, moving on to section 8, information and discussion. 8.1, Raul is going to present to us the Western Association of Schools and College, our WASC probationary report.
So, can you pass it around right now? It's
The probationary published report that our school has been working on for the last 2 years. In 2018, when the WASC committee came over, they put our school on probationary status, which means that we were on a status for 2 years, and we had to resubmit a report with updated information on our critical areas. So this report is a comprehensive report. It's a little shorter than the original WASP report. The original WASP report is about twice as long as this report. So this is a little bit more concise. The first part of this report is basically information about our testing scores, our demographics, that type of information. Our student learning outcomes are there. But starting on page 35 is where we start to look at the work that our staff has been working for the last 2 years on this with the significant school changes and developments. I'm not going to go page by page because it'll take too long. But I just wanted to point out that that's where it starts. And I just want to also just give kudos to the staff that has been working on this. They've been focused, dedicated with the guidance also and leadership of Jessica Musser has been instrumental in getting this report done and making sure that we are progressing in these areas that we needed to make some work. We have the WASCA group did give us a liaison to work with us through this process, and we have received positive feedback of the work that we've been doing. She will not be the person that will be visiting. The person that will be visiting will be, there's 2 people that will be here on the 8th, and then they'll stay here. The 8th is a Sunday, and they'll stay here on Monday and Tuesday. So the idea is that they get here on Sunday at 12, go through a tour of the campus. They want to meet with our leadership group, but also they want to meet with parents and community members at that time. And then after that, they will start their day on day 1, Monday at 8 o'clock, and then it finishes up on Tuesday for around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, the latter part of this report is where you see all the critical areas that were found and all the work that our school has been working on. And a lot of information in there, but I am pretty confident in the work that the staff has been doing that we should be getting a positive report back.
So you've already submitted this to somebody?
Yes, correct. It gets uploaded to the WASP website, and then it got uploaded on the 24th, on Friday the 24th. And then copies also get sent to the visiting committee as well.
And it was really good, thank you. A lot of hard work.
Right. A lot of work from our staff, Jessica. Well, I wanted to also mention that I did share this report with the School Site Council last Thursday, so they're part of the loop now. They have this information as well. I'm hoping to go into the leadership classes at our campus so students get information as well and make sure that we involve our students into this process as well as moving forward.
Yeah, I would like to add, I'm totally confident that in our staff that is handling the report and in yourself, Mr. Guerrero. I'm sure that we will be out of probation soon. And I've got my fingers crossed on the math scores for our high school and junior high. Come on with it, please.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate that this has been a 2-year process. It's before I got here, so a lot of work really is from the staff and has been here for the last 2 years. Thank you.
Great. Okay, moving on to 8.2. So we talked about in our last meeting that maybe we would review what the SARC report format is and give us a little education on the board. So Michael's agreed to come and give us a quick rundown on how that data is gathered.
All right, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you.
Welcome. So let's talk about the SARC. We're going to go through a description of what the SARC is, a little bit of the history, and answer any questions that might remain. It was born in 1988 with California Proposition 98. And when we think about Prop 98, we typically think about school funding. But within Proposition 98 was also a mandate for schools to create a school accountability report card. And at the same time, we also passed California Education Code 33126, which gives us the rationale. It says that the SARC shall provide data with which a parent can make meaningful comparisons between public schools that will enable him or her to make informed decisions on the school in which to enroll his or her child. And, you know, this is over 30 years ago. I think today we're pretty comfortable and familiar with the idea of accountability and transparency, especially with the California dashboard. But these are really the roots, right? This is the state's early attempt at creating a higher level of transparency with the public around schools. And then over the years, this education code has been added to repeatedly as the state has guided what should go into the SARC. So it was the CSTs, then they took the CSTs out, and they put the CAST. So this has ebbed and flowed over the years. And the majority of data that goes into the SARC is really inputted by the state. They pull data from schools into DataQuest, which is the warehouse, and then they push it back into the SARC. There are portions which we update ourselves, so it's a combination of both. But we will go through the required components of the SARC, so we're all on the same page with what the contents are. We have a school description. This is typically drafted by the site administrator, a narrative, followed by student enrollment data, which is just inputted into the document. There are conditions of learning elements, number of teachers, with information on credentials, a list of textbooks and instructional materials, facility conditions, which is a report that Chris Oakes, Director of Transportation Facilities and Maintenance, does annually. That same report, that data gets inputted into the SARC. Pupil outcomes, they put the CAST scores there for 2 prior years. This is the same information that we review annually. They just aggregate it by subgroup for the current year. They add the physical fitness test, the PFT proficiency there. This is something that we don't report on otherwise. And it's noteworthy that this piece of data is on today's consent agenda as updated information to our SARC. There's engagement information. This is a narrative by the site administrator, typically opportunities for parent engagement. Suspension and expulsion rates from the state that we review during the dashboard presentation. And then a series of other information. Counselor ratio of counselor to number of students on campus. Number of support staff, class size, teacher and administrator salaries. This is another component which is on the consent agenda today. Expenditure per pupil. Most of that data is really just inputted by the state. The professional development plan is something that the site administrator will fill out. And the types of services funded. What I will say about the types of services funded is when you look at the SARC, it's really just a list. Where I think this is much more interesting and meaningful is on the SIPSA, the Single Plan for Student Achievement, where we have the types of services really linked to the amount of dollars and the funding source. And that's really more of a rich document that we present to the board on an annual basis. We have the dropout rates, CTE, program participation, A to G enrollment, completion, AP enrollment, CTE program description. There also needs to be a link in the document to DataQuest. And DataQuest, again, is that kind of data warehouse where the data is all stored. But we want to make sure parents know that they have that link if they want to dig deeper into the data. And then there's a statement around internet access so that if parents want to access DataQuest, they know how to do that. So this data that comes from the state, it must be verified by the district. The state does this a courtesy, but they do ask that we verify it, which we do. Given this presentation, I double verified it just to make sure the data in our SARC is accurate. We update them annually by February 1st every year, and we make them publicly available. If 15% or more of your students speak a language or a primary language other than English, you make the report available in that language. And so if you go to our school site websites, you can find this report for us in English and in Spanish. And we also have hard copies available on request. So that's really the SARC. It's a pretty straightforward document. Again, it's a combination of things that come just from the state in the form of data and then some narrative that we provide. Any questions that I can answer?
No, why yes. So this report on how it is constructed, what I was hoping to get at is the data inside the report, as in regards to our A to G requirement. how much of our student body is actually at that level when they graduate. And them numbers are troubling. As well as our AP students. You know, I didn't see any numbers in that category. And it is, you know, and part of the update is January 1st, Assembly Bill 198, where it's an assessment to how our students are proficient to enter the workforce. Our CTE programs, how many students are graduating ready, you know, to enter the work field, and them numbers are troubling. And so I love the presentation on how the report is put together, but the data in it, I would hope that some programs would be added to raise these numbers. 20% is horrible, 44% is horrible. Our students need to be ready to enter the workforce, and what type of workforce? You know, is it aligned with our CTE programs? That's what I was hoping to get at. You know, as a director of curriculum, I think we should have some ideas on how to better serve our students. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have that in common, right? We want to see the same thing for our kids.
Absolutely.
We want to see our kids have success with us. We want to see our kids prepared to have success when they leave us, whether that be in work or in college. When it comes to the programmatic discussion, and that's where I do think there are real limits to the SARC document, this is really just pure data. That's what this is. I think the more interesting discussions about programming, I think where do we look to find those? We look to the SIPSAs at the site level, and we look to the LCAP at the district level. Those are those rich documents that talk about what are the strategies that the district is putting in place to help kids succeed. When we go through continual improvement, we look at the data to make sure that we have actions to address any deficiencies. But I think as far as our discussions, I think those are the places where we look to have those at the site level, the SIPSA, and at the district level with the LCAP.
I mean, the troubling part is that it falls along ethnic lines. The students that are doing good and who are not. And the majority of our population, of our student population, seems not to be doing so well when they reach the junior high and high school level. And that is troubling to me. That is very troubling to me. So that's the point I was hoping to get at.
Again, I would agree with
for
that.
some remedy.
I think the achievement gap is most frustrating to everyone in the district.
I mean, and it's not because our staff aren't getting paid well. I mean, we're ranked real high up there. You know, we have multiple programs that other schools are looking for, and but yet the bar is not moving. And so I mean, it's not that the money is the issue. You know, it's not lack of programs. It's something else, and that's what we need.
What I can share, and I do appreciate about the data that the state is providing us, is that we're disaggregating the data. And that we get to see those deficiencies. We get to see which groups are succeeding and which ones aren't. We don't really have that data in years past. Now we have it, it shines a light on where the issues are, and it promotes thinking within the district to address those changes. But I think, again, if we want to have a discussion about programs, let's have that discussion with the SIPSA, let's have it with the LCAP, let's make sure we have programs to address exactly what we're talking about. Other questions I can address? Yeah, and if any members of the public have questions, you know, they can see the sites, they can get paper copies of the SARC, or they can see it online, they can meet with administrators and have in-depth discussions. If any members of the board want to speak to this more clearly, or more in depth, I'm happy to meet with any member of the board and go through the actual steps in more detail and answer any questions that you might have. Yes?
Sorry. I tried to find that in your SARC, and I saw the Western Association of Schools report, I saw all the others, but there was no little.
If you go to, and not the district site, because these are site reports. If you go to the actual school site, so either the junior high school, senior high school, Palisades, or the elementary school site, not the district site, and you click About Us, there'll be a drop down that has a series of things. and you will find school accountability report card. You'll find it in English and in Spanish, and you'll find the historical ones if you're interested in looking back, I think as far as 2008 or something. It goes back quite a ways.
And is this ever published publicly beyond that? And is it ever summarized in the newspaper or anything like that?
You know, I can speak more globally to schools' practice. Schools typically publish these reports, they publish them on their websites, and they make them publicly available. These are not something that are typically reported out on, for example, at a board meeting, for the reasons that I've shared. This is really just strictly a data dump. I think, again, the Simpsons is a place that's more of a public document. It's really,
How about those of us who like that?
well, it's there for you to find
The
public.
data you're describing tomorrow?
Yeah, so it's publicly available to you on the internet or in paper format at the sites. And if you'd like to discuss it, we can discuss it in person. We can go through it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And I like data too. There's just, this report isn't real discretionary, and it doesn't really reveal a lot of what makes the district's decisions for program improvement
What
unique.
Michael's saying is our LCAP is a really rich document that addresses a lot of different data there. So if you ever want to move through that, that's a good document.
I think it was the summary.
And I would add to that, Sarah, so the LCAP is our programs, and the SARC is how effective our programs have been.
I will say, you know, this is an old format. This document has been in a similar format for over 30 years. You know, I think the one positive step the state has taken for the public is in releasing a California dashboard. It's just a much more user-friendly document. So we are still required to do this stuff, but I think to a degree, I think that the dashboard has really replaced this document in a lot of ways. And it's just much more easier, it's much more user-friendly to search California dashboard. You can get to the schools you want, you can see the data you want much easier. This feels to me like a little bit of an archaic document, but we still do. And there are elements that are unique to this document. Yeah, of course.
Okay. No other questions? Good. Moving on to 8.3, our federal program review, FPM, notification of findings.
So we had our 3 CDE visiting team members on site from January 28th through the 30th to conduct our federal program monitoring review of our 3 category programs, which included UCP, compensatory education, which means our Title I program, and then also our English learner program for our Title III funds. As you probably read in the report, we had no findings in UCP, we had 1 in CE and 5 in English learner program. So at this point going forward, we have a 45-day timeline, which is March 8th, to provide evidence to this review team that we've actually addressed each of those findings. So some of the findings, as you probably noted, are very easy to remedy, and actually you're going to be remedying one tonight if you approve our reclassification form. And then there's others that are going to take more time. And so the visiting team said that that's very common for districts, and they recognize that these more complex issues are going to take time, so we can apply for an extension past that 45-day timeline. They fully expect us to do that, in particular with the English learner program. So once we get to the 45-day timeline, I will have submitted all of the evidence that I feel is appropriate to submit and can be quickly submitted, and then I'll apply for the extension. And they will extend up to 180 days. I do not want to extend it to 180 days because I want to have these things in place for the beginning of the next school year. So our team is going to be working hard the next few months to make sure that we address all of them. And I wanted you to know that it's important that even though the review strictly was for the elementary school program, that once the FPM team finds or has a finding, you have to apply those findings to every district, every school in the district. So we only have 2. But we have to also make sure that things are in compliance at the junior, senior high school. So I want to say thank you to the principals, to the district office staff for all of the work that they put into preparing for the review. It was extensive. We uploaded well over 100 documents, some of them multiple times. And then thank you to the staff who were very gracious during the visit. And we have some work ahead of us, so I will report again at the March 2nd board meeting to let you know what items we have remedied. Again, some of them you're going to finish tonight.
I would like to say that I found this report troubling. There's a lot of CJUSD do not meet the requirements, insufficient intensity and duration, and must provide. Do not receive consistent, comprehensive, designated ELD instruction to ensure the outcome. And I thank you for getting that Title I in here, so this could be something that we could address. And I think this, once we address these issues, I think it will probably bring up our student achievement levels. And I'm curious on how long this has been at our district, and this is troubling because this all ties together, you know, our English learners get reclassified, not ready for the English language as they go to an English only school. And so I thank you once again for getting that Title I organized for us and getting this report, the federal report done. And I'm eager to see the change.
Is this something that happens
Every 2 years, but a district doesn't necessarily get reviewed every 2 years. So it's by region. They can choose if they are concerned about a district. They can select a district multiple times, but a lot of times it's just random.
And I know that I haven't seen this before, so I've been on this one.
That's because the district has chosen in the past not to take it as local programs. So that's where we're being reviewed now, so we're actually setting the funds. But
So this is a new accountability thing.
Correct.
Yes, we took the funds. Interesting, okay. So it might just be a matter of us not fully understanding, not being compliant, because we have done.
Exactly, and the reviewer, the lead reviewer, to put things into context for our district's team, he explained that last year the CDE reviewed 140 school districts. Out of that 140 districts, 8 of them had no findings whatsoever. Of the other 132, 50% of the districts had 1 to 10 findings, and 50% of that 130 districts had more than 10 findings. He said the ones that did not have any findings had been accepting categoricals for years and had been through multiple compliance audits. So you get better, you know.
Okay, moving on to 8.4 board policies and administrative regulations. So we're going through another first reading of, we have here 8 new board policies.
Correct, and there's a little synopsis. All of those are related to changes in law. And there's actually one policy that CSB is deleting.
So do they have any questions?
No, I've read them.
You read them? No questions?
No questions.
Okay, perfect. And we're good on that. Perfect. And then moving on to 9.1, Ms. Lamar.
Good evening, everyone. I first wanted to start out with today. We had our staff meeting where it was a very nice culmination of 2 activities that we have been doing. One is a district-wide activity, which is the data leadership team. And we went through and reviewed the California dashboard data as a whole staff and engaged in a data protocol to really analyze which groups are moving, which groups are pausing, and to discuss as a staff some of our instructional next steps and how it's going to impact how we work with students. And I think what made it unique was that part of the work of the data leadership team is really bringing the idea of shared leadership. And so it was wonderful today to see our teachers presenting and facilitating that conversation. The second thing that we did in our staff meeting is we did another data dive, but more looking at a local assessment tool. And that is where our grade level teachers worked with a particular formative assessment, it was pretty open to what they could choose. And they did that work in terms of looking at which students were on track, which students had some gaps, and which students do we really need to keep on our radar. And it was interesting because it was two different data protocols, but to see just in terms of how staff engaged with both pieces of data, there were some similarities and there were also some differences. In addition, this last month, we had another training with UC Davis Math Project. That is our combined with the elementary and secondary teachers who are working together. We learned a new strategy to improve the comprehension of word problems, and it's called 3 Reads. And I know at our site, we've implemented that. It's been very positively received, and so we're looking at really engaging all of our staff in that practice, because we do think that that will help improve math in particular, with being able to understand what students are being asked for in word problems. And then we're also looking at growing more of what we call the dot talks, the number talks, which is more of understanding the number sense and getting students comfortable in having mathematical discussions. We also are working on a goal, we are working on a survey right now for grades 4 through 6 students regarding academic awards and trying to really re-engage them in that process. And I do want to do a shout out to our student council. We had a small group go over to the Rotary meeting and did a fabulous presentation asking for assistance on a book vending machine. We are really, again, trying to change up incentives and awards, and these book vending machines would be in a very prominent place. There was interest on the part of the Rotary. We're looking to secure other funding sources, and the idea is, as an incentive, a student will get a token, be able to go to that book machine and get a contemporary bestseller novel at their interest level that they would like to read. We also, for our parent engagement this month, we had Aldea come and do a presentation regarding drug and alcohol prevention. It was received really well by our parents and seen as very informational. In terms of trends, there was a lot of time spent talking about vaping, which I think is a statewide issue right now. And then finally, last week, we had our first combined parent-teacher organization meeting. It was in this room. And we had 14 parents come. And previously for Calistoga Elementary, we were hitting about 5 parents, so we were very happy to see that increased turnout. It was also very evenly represented between elementary and secondary families. And we also ran the meeting bilingually, so we did have Spanish-speaking families coming to this meeting, which was another challenge that we've been having with our PTA. We did a lot of work on establishing values, which in terms of establishing values, those become your guidelines as you're working together as a committee. And then what we're looking forward to is coming together at our next meeting and really outlining what do we want to see in a community school partnership, and then those end up helping to inform our bylaws so that we can move forward and have a reinvigorated parent-teacher organization. So that's what's going on at the elementary level.
That's great that the PTO was not Hispanic.
It's been busy. Just wanted to share a couple of things. We did have a real successful CTE Sunday on Friday the 24th. After that, it happens in the gym. There's different organizations that come in and talk about their profession and the work that they do, and our students go around the table getting information. And then afterwards, the people that came to present, we have a little circle conversation here. And some of the feedback that we receive is that, again, the respectfulness of our students, that they shake hands, they do eye contact, some of the similar things you were mentioning, Sarah. So it was very positive conversation. They're excited to come back because they really enjoy working with our students. Also, last Wednesday, we welcomed our incoming families, our current 6th graders. We invited them to come in. We did a PowerPoint presentation here, kind of getting them thinking about high school already. So, and then on Thursday, we had a junior high awards rally. It was kind of an impromptu thing. The junior high teachers got together and said, hey, we want to hold a rally for our students. And we gave out 60 awards for perfect attendance, for growth in GPA, and then for 3.5 to 3.99, and then for 4.0 GPAs. So 60 students were able to get an award. Some got multiple awards, so this is just 60 students. Some got more than one. But very high energy, students were very enthusiastic about it, and we're going to reward them with an ice cream party as well. And then another thing that happened is kind of another impromptu thing. Some of the little changes we've been working on improving our school culture and the way we work together here. Maria in the office said, hey, how about we do a potluck for our staff every last Friday on the last day of the month. So she put out an email to teachers, and that happened last Friday. Great participation, a lot of food in the staff room. Teachers got in there, they were eating, and when you're around food, it creates that community, and that's what we want to really continue to create here. So very positive, and again, thank you to Maria for that idea, and you're welcome to come next last Friday of the month, last day of the month. The other thing I want to check, just kind of talk a little bit, is that I am concerned as well with student achievement. And part of that is, of course, is test scores and all that, but we're looking at the student as a whole, right? We got to look at the student as a whole, not just the test scores, but also listen to student voices. So I held a reserve circle with 20 freshman students, the boys, last week. Very good conversation. They weren't sure why they were there. They came into the gym, like, what are we doing here? Is this a baseball meeting? And no, this is not a baseball meeting. This is for me to listen to see how we can help you. And I also invited students that were struggling in 9th grade, but also students that are doing well, because I want them to be part of that conversation as to what they're doing to move forward. And then I also invited some seniors to come in as mentors. Some of the things that came out, we talked about motivation. They of course talked about their family being motivators. Sports is another big motivation for them. But then they talked about that there does exist here a culture of it's okay to get poor grades, and that's something that we need to work on to change. And that's something that definitely, with these kinds of conversations, we're hoping to continue to change. They also mentioned that it would be helpful to have mentorship from senior students to work with 9th graders, so we're going to implement that right away, try and get that going. And also they talked about just kind of, that they also take responsibility for not reaching out to teachers when they need help, but also mentioned that maybe teachers could reach out to them as well. So some of those things that we need to reflect on and work together as a staff to move our school forward. And it's just one piece of the puzzle, right? But anyways, we're looking forward to continuing to work on that. And then I asked them too, like, how many of you started this semester with wanting to do well this semester? And they all raised their hand. So that's a good thing, right? So now we got to work on making sure that it's not like a New Year's resolution that is forgotten after a couple of weeks. And then we do have our open house showcase night coming up. That's on the 12th. So we're looking forward to having the community here and showcasing our programs on that evening. And then going back to research, we'll go with the boys. Ms. Balzer-Negro and Ms. Fred Morales will do a girls circle as well, because students have been talking about it with people that are with Aldea and other groups that they're working with, and said, hey, we really enjoyed that group circle that we did in the gym. So now we're going to also expand it to try to do a girls circle and hear that conversation as well. Thank you.
I would like to hear our kids. Simple gesture like that goes so far. Good job, sir.
Okay, time for student representative Lex.
Currently, students and teachers have mixed opinions about the schedule this year. Some agree with the idea of having 4 block periods a week, while others disagree and would prefer only 2 block periods a week. A survey has been formulated in hopes of understanding what the majority opinion is. The responses of the students are still pending, but the responses of the teachers have been collected already. It is important to receive everyone's opinion before making a decision that will impact those attending the 2020 through 2021 school year. Once all of the responses have been collected, I plan on writing a full report and proposing the final outcome. This is simply an introduction to a possible change in the future regarding the schedule.
Okay. And 9.5, Director of Educational Services.
All right. It's been a busy month and productive month in Ed Services. I'll share some of our work here. You'll see some of these again in action items, but I'm going to mention those. In math, in addition to the K-12 Articulation Day, which Nicole shared with us, we had a 7-12, grade 7-12 math planning day. Really appreciate, we have such a small staff, and it's great to see a small number of teachers in the room having dialogue, and being able to have their voice heard, even for new teachers. And sometimes even with a larger staff, you can sit back, having a small staff engaged. We have a very engaged staff. I think part of that's just due to our scale. So very proud of our math team for what they did on that day. We finalized our agreement with West Ed, and we're very much looking forward to their evaluation of our math program in the spring. As part of the process, prior to moving forward with West Ed, we had a chance to speak with each teacher in the department, set administrators, make sure that everyone had their voice heard of what they wanted to see, make sure that there's full support, that we have a collaborative stance as we look to bring a third party onto our campus. And I think we're there, and I really look forward to that work. On the Measure of Academic Progress program, this is the interim assessment program that we're looking at to potentially replace RI and MI. The trainer from MAP came and spent a half day with us, and the teachers were engaged, and I think there's a lot of energy around MAP right now. I'm very excited to launch into our first series of assessments during our pilot and see if MAP is a program that fits our needs. On the cultural lead and responsive instruction, professional development for April 13th. We have finalized our agreement with our trainers. We've had multiple meetings and sessions with them as we look to plan and make sure that they understand what our needs are and they tailor that training for us. We have finalized the agreement and we're moving towards that April 13th training day. Our Ed Tech Committee, early in the year, when we set our priorities, that team said they really wanted to look at a student management system. And so this year we piloted, or I called it speed dating. We had 3 quick sessions with these 3 companies that presented to us online. And we agreed to look at PARA as a program to pilot. And the reason we really liked PARA was in addition to doing student monitoring, so it's a program that will allow teachers to see what each student is doing on their computer, on their device, right? It's a monitoring tool, which is good. We want our teachers to have, to know what their kids are doing. We want our kids to know their teacher knows what they're doing, right? What we really did like about Papara was it did other things other than just that. It's a teaching and learning tool that allows teachers to push out documents digitally, to collaborate with their kids, and it's really a teaching and learning tool, right? In addition to just the management tool. And that's really where we saw the benefit, and so we are looking forward to piloting that in the spring. Potential purchase for next year. And then lastly, on the human resources front, working towards an agreement with VALIC to administer our 403B plans. We currently administer our own plans, and having a third party is going to be much more efficient. We're a very small department, and there's a lot of labor involved in that. Having another company do that going to be much more efficient. And there are new regulations relating to 403Bs, and it's important that we have a company that knows those regulations and make sure that we're compliant. And so I anticipate in March we'll bring it forward with that for the administration.
Thank you. Okay. Maureen, 9.5.
Okay, Governor Newsom has proposed a budget for 2021. I was lucky enough to attend school services professional development workshop for business people that they give a full synopsis of what the proposal is. And I'm just going to give a couple of highlights. It's a pretty flat budget for Prop 98, meaning there's not a whole lot of new revenue going from one year to the next. And not any one-time money that we've seen in the past. So this year, if you remember, I spoke about special education and preschool money that they gave to us unrestricted, that we would spend as we needed to. We got about $74,000 this year, nothing like that's in the budget for next year. What they are proposing is a raise on a per student special education. So SELPAs get money per student in the state, and they go to SELPAs, which are county special ed programs. And they're proposing to raise that by about $640 to $680 per student. What they're trying to do is equalize what SELPAs get amongst the entire state. So right now it's very uneven as far as kind of like local revenue limits. Some districts get a lot less, some districts get a lot more, same with SELPAs and special education dollars. Napa County actually is in that top 10%, so we aren't going to see any of that money. So unfortunately what we would have seen in the unrestricted preschool stuff is now being kind of proposed to go into that special education funding. The only other thing I want to mention about the proposal from the governor is he would like some more LCFF fiscal transparency, so he's putting some money into all districts having to use an online portal to actually put their LCAP into that portal, so it's a lot easier for people to go see different districts' LCAPs and compare them. I wanted to also mention tonight about a proposition that's on the March ballot. It's Prop 13. It's the $15 billion GEO bond construction. There seems to be a lot of confusion out there amongst the public that this is an actual Prop 13 proposition that is going to change property taxes. It is not. It is a GEO bond that the state is passing. It has nothing to do with our original Prop 13 passage way back when. But I did want to make that clear that it's for schools. It's for schools like ours that are going to be doing construction in a couple of years and really need to rely on that money to help with our construction costs. So that's a $15 million bond that is on the March ballot. It is called Prop 13. Propositions are just picked by numbers, so we got the unfortunate calling of Prop 13 for that particular bond. There's another initiative right now that I've talked about in the past. This is not on the March ballot. It's hopefully going to be on the November ballot. They've actually done some revisions to the actual measure, and so they're collecting signatures again. You might have seen people out in front of Target or Safeways or this weekend collecting signatures. That's called the School and Community Initiative, and that is an effect to Prop 13, but not residential Prop 13. So I wanted to also make that very clear. There's a lot of confusion out there on this as well. If that initiative ends up on the November ballot, it will only affect commercial property. Commercial property has never been affected by Prop 13, and so they're feeling like it's time to take a look at commercial property and go ahead and raise tax on commercial properties. But again, no residential tax, so if that does go through, that's how that will come to fruition. The other thing I want to mention about that initiative is for school districts such as ours, I think I've talked about this before also, it is going to raise between $7 and $12 billion a year. That will go, 40% of that money will go to school districts, 60% of that money will go to other local governments like fire and police. But community-funded districts such as ours, we won't see our actual, like we get our property taxes within our district now, and we get to keep that. We won't get to do that with this particular measure. We will get about $100 per ADA, and then the rest will be divided amongst the entire state. So they did look at, it's not fair to everyone as far as, we get what we have in our community. I feel like community-funded districts were a little shorted on this measure. But again, still good for all schools if it does pass. Escape is full on and going. We went to 6 training days in January, we have 9 training days in February, and right now what we're currently working on is we're mapping between our systems, so we're saying what's this in DS, it's gonna be this in Escape, and we're making sure that that electronically is moving from one system to another. We attended a couple overviews for end users, so people that are gonna be actually doing purchase orders, people like Paula that in our office does purchase orders, or HR things, they get to see what it looks like on the end user side of things. And then we're also working on account maintenance and vendor management, so it'll be a busy February.
So remind me what the date is that you think you're going to be fully live.
We are gonna go fully live after July 1st, so probably around the 2nd or 3rd of July. And normally this is a 12-month process, and Apcan is doing it in 6. So, very, very quick turnaround. So far, I really like all the things that the system's doing, but it's going to be treacherous to get to July. You can't get here fast enough. Breakfast at the junior senior high school, I think I mentioned last month that we were going to start serving breakfast early before school started, and we did start that program. We advertised it heavily. We did some robocalls, we did announcements at school, we sent home things in newsletters, but to no avail. We had 1 participant the entire month. So out of all the days we offered, we had 1 student take us up on that offer. So we are going to back off of that as far as offering breakfast before school, because we will save obviously on food costs and heating costs for the food that we do offer at the break. And we thought maybe it would work. We thought maybe it would take away, but we didn't get any takers.
How did we come to that conclusion? Just was it a student nature? Was a survey done to the students?
You mean to offer it in the first place?
Correct.
Yeah, the staff, it actually had been something that came up a couple of years ago. The staff had felt the kids were coming to school tired and they needed some little energy boost in the morning. And we had a community member, say the same thing working with students. And so we decided to just kind of try it out as a pilot and see, hey, if we offer it in the morning, will we get some takers to come and eat breakfast before school starts? It really is difficult when you get to the junior and senior high school level to get kids to school 20 minutes, 30 minutes early to eat breakfast. It really is a difficult thing. But it came about, we did send out a survey. So before we did it, there was interest. It was about 50-50 of kids that said, yeah, I do it before school or at a break. So we figured there would be enough interest that it would kind of take, but it did not. We tried. And that is all I have for our report.
Under LCAP goal number 1, today I had the pleasure of recognizing the elementary school staff for the phenomenal growth that they showed on the California School Dashboard last year. I also want to recognize, however, the junior, senior high school staff and also the district staff, as we're implementing lots of new initiatives, and everybody's working hard to try to improve student learning. So thank you, everyone. Under LCAP goal number 2, providing a safe, healthy, and positive school environment. If you don't know this yet, it is National School Counseling Week. So if you should see Michelle Craig Morales, please tell her thank you for the phenomenal job that she does serving our students at the junior senior high school. Then under LCAP goal number 3, increasing parent engagement and enhancing communication, we are going to begin a promotion of PK. This next week, our goal is to have 45 parents participate in the 2-day seminar. So it's going to be held on March 7th and March 14th. The Family Center has already agreed that they will do anything possible to help us, and we cannot get 45 parents immediately. So they're even willing to make phone calls to parents. But I've heard there's already interest out in the parent community, and we will be offering it in both Spanish and English. That's all I have today.
Okay, so 10 is the consent agenda, and this is a roll call vote. First I have to ask if anybody, you don't have a little description. Well, anyways. Is it anything? Well, you have the option of you have the option to pull any of the line items out if you like. So I'm asking, is there anything?
I can read it for you.
I do not.
You could read it, would you like me to read? Sure, just so we all understand.
Actions proposed for the consent agenda are deemed routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless any board member, the audience, or staff request specific items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate action.
So, nobody would like anything. So we're looking for a motion to go ahead and approve our consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And it's a roll call. President Elfisham, aye. Clerk Reed?
Aye.
Amy is absent. Trustee Maxwell?
Aye.
Trustee Gordo?
Aye.
Wonderful. Okay, so now on to action items. 11.1 action items, protocol. Protocol for action items includes a staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board. During public input, there will be a 3-minute time limit per person. So 11.2, we're looking at our annual and 5-year developer fees reports.
These were the two reports that we had at the public hearing. And if the board accepts the reports as presented, all you need to do is have action that you accept them as presented.
So just making sure nobody has any questions on the developer fee reports? No? Okay, good. So I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve 11.2.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, moving on to 11.3, consolidated application, CON-APP. Want to explain it?
I can. In 1920, we will be receiving federal funds from Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. That totals over $180,000 for our district. This is part of the FPM review that comes about because we are accepting these funds. But again, we get $180,000, so it's worth the work to accept those funds from the federal government. And we have to apply through the state, through CDE, to get the funds. And so we do 2 different filings for the CON-APP. One is right now at this time, and then we do a separate one in June. We're doing great things with these federal dollars. The money for funds our intervention teachers at the our intervention teacher at the elementary school, a para at the junior senior high school, and professional development for all of our teachers at those sites.
Great. So, any questions on that? No? Was it worth $180,000 for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that it's over.
All right, perfect. So I'm just looking for a motion to go ahead and approve the CON-APP application.
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and 1 absent. Perfect. So 11.4, we're looking at an agreement with Jack Schrader and Associates for developer fee justification study.
Correct. The state allocation board has approved a developer fee increase up to $4.08 per square foot and 61 to 66 cents per square foot on commercial property. And in order for our district to take advantage of collecting that increase in fee, we need to do a new justification study for our district. And so Jack Schrader has done our studies in the past. And by doing the study, they cover 5 component areas within the study. They look at the development in our community. They look at student yield factors in the developments. They look at our generation and enrollment projections based on our developments. And then they identify existing facility and capacity and facility needs through the report. And then they prepare the document. And that is something we do have to keep on file, and people of the public that want to read it and want to see why we are justifying our study, they have that available to them. It is a how much did I say it was? $48.25 for the cost of the study. And it will be completed probably within 60 days after we tell them that we want to or don't want to raise our developer fees and do this one.
We're doing the study to see if we can raise it to the full $4.
Correct. Right now, we're actually not charging what we could be charging because the study wasn't done 2 years ago and they raised the fees before. So we're actually 2 steps behind right now. So it's kind of important if we want to. Again, construction's going to be coming. We want to make sure we're getting all of the dollars that we can to use in our construction.
Okay.
Motion Motion to approve 11.4.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Jeff, all in favor? Perfect. 11.5, engagement letter with Christie White and Associates.
We as a school district every 3 years have to renew our pick for an auditor, and we would like to remain with Christie White. They have done a great job. They're very easy to work with. They work with all the other districts in the county except for Napa Valley Unified. They also work with the county office. So they did send an engagement letter for the next 3 years, so it'll be through the 21-22 fiscal year that they would audit. And it's a minimal increase for a little over $2,500 to enter into contract with them. And I would like to move forward with that. This is my recommendation to the board.
Questions? Motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on. 11.6, a memorandum of understanding with the St. Helena Joint Unified School District for a transportation study.
We would like to conduct a transportation study in conjunction with St. Helena. The company that would be doing the study is called PTI LLC. The reason this is coming about for us right now is, I've talked about this in the past as well at other board meetings, Napa Valley Unified currently provides a homeschool transportation for our students. They have told us that as of June 30th, they will no longer be providing that transportation. And so we've been working with St. Helena, trying to figure out, we're neighbors, we're close, how can we make this work between both districts and provide the same services to our students? In thinking about that, we want to take a look at our entire transportation program, not only home to school, our special ed transportation program, and then field trips as well. So this is a study where they will do all of that for us. It's 2 days of them being here in the field, working with Chris, our transportation supervisor, and St. Helena and myself. And we will be working to just take a huge scope of what both districts do in transportation, what can be done more efficiently and more cost effective in the future, whether that be with St. Helena or not. That's what we'll hopefully find out with the study.
Will they look, oh, I don't know, it's kind of words. Will they be looking at sports team movement also?
They will be looking at field trip activities, so I would assume that would be included in the sports team stuff. Yeah. The cost of the contract for us is 25% of the entire contract. We kind of did it on, they have 4 buses, we have 1, we get 25% of the contract, and so it's about $4,484 cost for us. Our transportation program currently is running about $300,000, so that's peanuts when it comes to the amount of money we're trying to look at.
All right.
Do we own that bus?
We do, we own 3 buses. One is not operable, but we do have 2 buses that we use daily. So Napa Valley actually provides the driver and they drive our buses.
That's the,
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out, and it's not simple to just hire the driver. There's a lot of other things that come into that if you want to start your own transportation department. So that's exactly what this company is going to do for us. They're going to say, hey, if you want to do it this way, these are the costs you're going to have. If you want to do it, another way, these are the costs you're going to have. And they check out the whole scope of everything. And we have to think about bus repairs and who's going to repair the bus if we, take it on ourselves, and where do we store them, and there's just so many different things that come into play. Who do we dispatch on a daily basis, and that kind of stuff.
We have 3 buses and only 1 works.
We have 3 buses and 2 work. The other bus we actually keep for grant purposes. So it doesn't work, but it's very old and it has a lot of miles, so when we apply for grants, we can actually use that bus.
Play by the rules, right?
Exactly, you have to play by the rules, and that's, it's kind of worth it. In every school district I've been in, we've had a bus just like that, that you use to apply for grants. So, and we will be doing that. But again, that all needs to be looked at and analyzed, and it's a big undertaking.
This is going to lay out for us the whole shebang, what option.
Yes, hopefully, that's the goal.
good, okay.
Motion to approve 11.6.
Okay, Mark. And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, 11.7, agreement with Apera for the learning management software.
agreement allows us to pilot our dashboard and highlights for 90 days at a cost of $300. I'm excited about that price. It's about a third of what they typically charge, but we haggle well. They're out of New Zealand. They're a worldwide leader in providing learning management software. The dashboard feature allows instructors to easily assign and view students' digital work, to collaborate and coach students online, and to organize students into different groups to provide differentiated instruction. The highlights feature enables teachers to view students' online activity, to guide students to and from sites, and provide targeted feedback and support of helping students become better digital citizens.
Anybody in our surrounding districts using it?
Yeah, there are. I mean, I've implemented this program at 2 districts, most recently in Hillsburg. It's great. It's fantastic. It's easy to use. It requires very little professional development and support for teachers. It's very intuitive. It's really great.
So how many people are gonna pilot it here?
Yeah, so we sent out a survey early on in this process, and we actually got about 20 teachers that are interested in trying it out. It's a lot, so yeah.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
We did deal with the
I guess, yes.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Okay. Wow, we have so much action tonight. 11.8, agreement with West Ed for our math articulation student.
West Ed is a leader in educational research and professional development. They will conduct interviews, surveys, and classroom observations of our secondary math program. They'll also analyze student data, and they will ultimately create a set of written recommendations for improving our program. The site visitations and data analysis will occur in the spring, and their final report and team debrief will occur before the end of this school year to prepare us for next school year. And if it goes well, I think there's a potential that we will recommend additional support from West Ed to implement the plan and bring it to fruition over the course of the following 2 years.
I would like to request that the results of this, their report be made public to the board and public as soon as we get it. Like that special ed, April 2019, and I just got it in January. So please, when I report to somebody's hands, I would like to see it.
I think that's fair, and I think given where we want to go with our math department, I think we'll be anxiously awaiting the report. I do think it would be important that we also review it with the team, that math team, in a timely manner so they can have the results as well.
So just looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
11.9, agreements with Stephanie Graham Rivas and Bonnie Rains for culturally responsive teacher training.
Ms. Graham Rivas and Ms. Rains are experts and leaders in the field of culturally responsive pedagogy, CRP. Ms. Graham Rivas was previously worked at the Museum of Tolerance. She actually created their program, which hosts visitations for teachers throughout the state. I participated in that program years ago. So she created that program before they ultimately handed it off to Teaching Tolerance. She partnered with Teaching Tolerance in that transition. She's an author and provider of school-based professional development. Ms. Rains is a veteran classroom teacher in Sonoma County. She's an on-the-ground practitioner of culturally responsive pedagogy in the classroom setting. This agreement is for a one-day professional development with our staff. And if this goes well, we potentially will recommend additional support from them with staff in the next 2 years to focus more on the instructional component and improving student achievement and culturally responsive instruction.
I have a question. Have I been pronouncing that word wrong this whole time?
Which one?
Is it pedagogy or pedagogy?
Oh, he can probably go either way.
Yeah, I love that book, by the way.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve that agreement.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 11.10, initial sunshine proposal for CAT to Calistoga Joint Unified School District for collective bargaining negotiations. Is that you?
Yeah, that's
You
us.
wanna Say something about it?
We
No.
look forward to a productive bargaining session. It's positive
Good answer.
energy.
So just so you know, this is just to acknowledge receipt of the proposed contract articles submitted by Calistoga Joint Unified School District by Calistoga Associated Teachers. And so our recommended action is that we receive the sunshine of CAT for their initial proposal as presented. So I'm looking for a
So moved.
perfect. All in favor? And then 11.11, same line, sunshining the proposal from Calistoga Joint Unified School District to CAT for collective bargaining negotiations.
I will say that the district also looks forward to productive and positive negotiations
Yes.
for another year.
Good answers.
Okay, good, so I'm just looking for a motion for that.
So moved.
Great job. And second?
Second.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay. Moving forward to 11.12, we're going to go ahead and approve the board policies and administrative regulations. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, as a reminder, you had no suggested changes from the first reading last time, so these are the exact same policies. I do want you to look at the asterisks there. Unfortunately, due to global adoption, we accidentally wrapped in the policy that you had previously changed at direction of the FPN. So we're actually having you re-adopt a couple of policies that you had adopted back in October.
Sister Logistics.
It is, yes.
We're going to get this. We're gonna
Yes.
get this all.
Yeah, we'll be done with this one now.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm looking for a motion to go ahead and approve those board policies.
So moved.
Thanks, Jeff. And a second?
Second.
You guys are too polite. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Here is absent. Great. So we're just looking at 12.1, our board meeting calendar. Just take a peek at those dates, make sure we have anybody that knows they can't be there for any of those, let us know as soon as you can. So March 2nd, April 13th, and May 11th. 12.2, upcoming events and activities. So hopefully we'll see everybody at February 12th open house, which is so great. Are we doing pizza ahead of time this time? No? Anybody knows? Okay. That was a big draw last year, I just wanted to say. Oh, maybe that's back to school. If they do pizza. And February 14th through 17th is President Lincoln's Day holiday weekend. And then February 18th is kindergarten registration beginning. And then 12.3, tentative future agenda items, second interim financial report. Yay! And 12.4, there's no need to reconvene to close session.
On 12.3, I would like to add an item to be reviewed. It's the AR 6145 of the Calistoga Joint Unified. And it's in regards to participation in extracurricular activities. I feel this either needs to be changed or we can discuss it.
So I'll put it on for first read
Yes.
next time.
So we have that for first reading coming up on the next meeting. Anything else? Okay, perfect. We're not reconvening in closed session, so. All in favor?